It has been 84 years since the world was first introduced to Starfield, the newest game set to be released by Bethesda Studios, and the first new IP the studio has created in over a quarter of a century. That's a long time. With wildly popular franchises like The Elder Scrolls and Fallout under their belts, though, it's hard to argue that they've exactly had a lot of free time on their hands over the past 30 years. Regardless, though, over the last year, the studio has been especially cloistered as they prepare for the release and eventual delay of Starfield. However, the studio came out of their shell and dropped a real banger update of a video for the game. This new trailer, while only containing about a minute or so of actual in-engine footage as its focal point, features a direct message from the big man himself, Todd Howard. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. In this video, we'll be going over the trailer, what was seen, what was said, and finding all the hidden little details that we can to shed new light on potentially as of yet unseen features, and maybe speculate about a few other things. Before getting started, I just wanted to real quickly remind you guys that if you enjoyed this video, to give it a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Thanks a bunch. The first big new bit of information that we got with the new trailer comes from a radio communication coming from what is identified as Constellation Star System LO868, as what we can assume to be the player ship actively docking at the station. What's noteworthy is that this transmission seems to be coming from the exact same ship we saw back in the teaser trailer in 2018, meaning that we now have an official name for this iconic vessel. The voice on the radio goes to explain that their instruments are picking up some signs of activity around the anomaly, which seems to be these actively spinning gyroscope-looking things that we see in other shots in the video, and that appear to be able to affect the area around them. As we can see, the structure that is implied to house the anomaly has floating rocks and other debris hovering around it. Over the next few seconds, it is implied that we as the player character enter into this temple and investigate the anomaly, and in the process are within close proximity to the anomaly during some kind of explosive energy output. What I find to be most noteworthy about this scene, though, is that it seems to be very similar to the energy blast that we saw during Starfield's announcement trailer. And seeing as how it's the LO868 station in both videos, it's definitely noteworthy. We can speculate that this means that this will be a pivotal moment in the game's story, one that has major ramifications that will play a big impact on us and on Constellation, as it seems to be insinuating that we, as a part of Constellation, are sent to investigate or learn more about this anomaly, something happens, and from there we are most likely tasked with discovering more. There was a clip from an earlier Starfield gameplay video that seemed to show us as the player character as a member of a mining crew, thus hinting or alluding to that this will be how the game actually begins. If this is the case, then this encounter with the anomaly will most likely be what further calls us to adventure, similar to what we experienced in Skyrim the first time we kill a dragon and gain the ability to use Dragon Shout. Will this mean that we will gain some sort of supernatural ability as a result of being affected by this anomaly's explosive energy? Maybe, maybe not, but in the vastness of unexplored space, almost anything is possible. We then get the new release date for the game, September 6th, 2023, almost a full year after the game was originally planned to drop. The second half of this video shows Todd Howard speaking to us, the viewers, from inside Bethesda's main studio, with several developers including senior producer Tim Lamb, who has held productive levels on every mainline Bethesda Fallout game thus far. Even though Tim is a fancy lad who does fancy things, he's not the focus of today's video. Instead, our focus is going to be on the TV he's gaming on, as we can clearly see that he is in fact playing a live version of Starfield. Before we focus on that though, there's this quick cutaway segment where one of the shots shows a dev typing on a document, and even though it's hard to see what exactly he's typing, I think it might actually be a note or terminal entry we will be able to find in-game. Given that at the bottom of the page we can make out that it is signed by an Admiral Logan of the UFC fleet. We can also see a design document note stating that a video loop of the Crimson Fleet, a pirate faction that the player can join, should be inserted into the document, meaning that most likely it will be a terminal entry or digital message that we will be able to find at some point in the game. If you can make out what the rest of the document says, post your translation down in the comments. Going back to the gameplay in the background, there are a few things that we can notice straight away. The first thing that we notice is that a humanoid companion is following the player character, As Starfield has not yet given any indication that there will be any co-op or multiplayer features, we can safely assume that what we are seeing is one of the game's companions, or potentially a temporary NPC follower. Unfortunately, we never get a good look at this character, so it's hard to tell for sure. But if it is a companion, then this will be the very first look at a human companion, having been previously introduced to our robotic friend Vasco back in the 2020 E3 showcase. As gameplay continues on in the background, we get a better idea of how the game will actually handle, with character movements very similar to that of player character animations in Fallout 4. It's not a huge surprise given that Starfield is using a similar engine as Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, but what is interesting are these little black text boxes that appear on screen while the game is going on. At first, I thought these were some kind of developer data pages. The game is being played at Bethesda, so it wouldn't be all that surprising for the devs to have a developer version of the game to check for final bugs or glitches. But upon closer inspection, they instead seem to be inventory drop-down windows similar to what we were first introduced to in Fallout 4, just with a more old-school command line-inspired interface. This is actually really cool. I think universally everyone can agree that the live look window of Fallout 4 is one of the game's best features, making looting much easier and faster compared to previous titles. It is at this point that Todd hits us with the big guns, officially announcing the Starfield Direct Showcase scheduled to take place inside of Bethesda Studios on June 11th. While nothing much is said about what exactly the Direct will reveal, Todd does say that there is still so much that he wants to share with the fans, and that this showcase will be the opportunity to really focus on presenting something spectacular. Whether or not it will be actually anything mind-blowing, it is awesome to see that Bethesda is doing larger showcases and more in-depth deep dives into these bigger titles, and it makes me wonder if they will have long-term plans to do something similar for Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. Only time will tell. Going back to the gameplay, however, we get a few scenes that show the player character engaging in direct combat with enemies, utilizing their jetpack to fly around the battlefield to return fire, as well as a few cutaway shots showcasing the close-ups of different parts of the game we will be able to explore. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, we also get to see a weapon hot button control in full display, appearing very similar to, once again, Fallout 4. With this new system though, it takes center stage on the screen and appears to slow down time while active, very similar to the weapon switching in Grand Theft Auto 5. Right after this, however, is the part that caught my attention the most, and it showcases the actual inventory system, showing one of the devs cycling through different helmets. A few things stood out to me on this screen. First and foremost, we actually get to see how each item looks on our character as we try them on. No more equipping in one menu, then leaving to look at our character in third person like in previous creation games. We also get a look at both a credit counter and a total mass counter. Pretty self-explanatory, really. Credits is currency and mass is how much weight we can carry. What's interesting to note, though, is that the dev's current mass is 1100, which if memory serves is the highest total we have seen in a vanilla creation game to date. Whether this is scaled up to reflect a more realistically heavy loadout, modern spacesuits often weighing several hundred pounds when fully equipped for a spacewalk, or is just a more generous max weight by the devs is as of yet unknown, as well as if this includes some form of carry weight additive such as a backpack or pocketed armor. Either way, it's a big number, and it will be interesting to see what that actually means in-game. The last part that I want to look at for this video is actually really cool. As we can see in the top right-hand screen, damage resistance stats for each individual helmet. We can see the three main damage types in-game, which I believe to be physical damage, energy damage, and electromagnetic damage? The last bit looks a little bit like it says EM, which would be electromagnetic. However, that seems like it would be something that would more so affect robots, right? Perhaps this damage type is less of a actual player health damage and is more like, say, for example, we're on a planet without breathable air. EM attacks would do damage to not us, but instead the usability and health of our spacesuit. And if it breaks, we'll more quickly lose oxygen or be more susceptible to environmental hazards. Or maybe the big twist of the game is our character is actually a synth. Speaking of environmental hazards, we actually get a better look at the different kinds of environmental hazards we may encounter on different planets, as right below the damage type resistance we can see the environmental resistance stats. From what I can make out, the four different types are thermal damage, airborne damage, corrosive damage, and of course, radiation damage. Thermal meaning heat and cold, airborne most likely being pollutions and dust, corrosive being things like acid rain, and radiation being, well, radiation. This is a Fallout channel. You guys should know that one easy. For now, though, that's everything that was featured in the latest Starfield video. What do you guys think? Me personally, I can't wait for the Starfield Direct. With what we already know about the game, it's going to be interesting to see what Bethesda has been holding back for a big reveal. And with an official release date, once again, we can all hop back on the hype train. For the last time, hopefully. Until next time, though, I thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe and stuff, and I will see you all out there in the wasteland.